The medbay on Hestia Ridge still smelled like burnt plastic and cold antiseptic, a wrong mix that stuck in the back of Commander Lyra Cade's throat. The corridor lights had switched to emergency amber, and the color made everything look like an old bruise: walls, hands, faces. Someone had taped a handwritten sign to a warped bulkhead: Quiet Zone. The tape was melted at the edges. A row of child-sized respirator masks sat on a steel table, lined up as if they were waiting for a lesson that would never happen. Lyra stopped there, fingers hovering without touching. One mask had a cartoon comet sticker on the side, cheap, cheerful, from a supply packet the council had donated last quarter. She swallowed. The silence pressed at her ribs. Behind her, boots clicked with the measured rhythm of people who had done this 100 times and felt nothing. The council investigators moved like priests in a clean temple, pale robes, gloved hands, drones floating at shoulder height, lenses blinking red as they recorded grief like evidence. Inspector Rovalin, tall, narrow-faced, eyes like polished stone, tilted his head toward the damaged oxygen manifold. Detonation appears localized. Likely a maintenance fault. Tragic, but predictable in frontier infrastructure. Lyra kept her gaze on the manifold's shattered casing. The metal wasn't torn outward, it was pinched inward, as if the blast had been guided. Predictable, she echoed, voice flat. Rovalin offered a sympathetic angle to his mouth, practiced and bloodless. The council will provide recommendations. Updated compliance manuals. Training modules. These things kill people, Lyra said. A faint pause. The drones hovered patient. A medic in a stained coverall stepped from behind a curtain, face drawn tight. Commander? His badge read Tomas Iqbal. His eyes flicked to the investigators, then back to her. There's someone you should speak to. Before they file her. Lyra followed him through the shattered doorway into what used to be the triage room. Makeshift beds filled the space, sheets draped over forms that didn't move. A woman sat upright on the last cot, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Her hair was singed at the ends, and one arm was bandaged from wrist to shoulder. She stared at the wall like it might suddenly explain itself. Tomas crouched beside her. Mira. This is Commander Cade. The woman's gaze shifted, slow and heavy. You're the one they called, she rasped. Lyra nodded. I'm here. Myra's eyes glistened, not with tears, but with fury held behind a dam. They told us to wait, she said. To document. To request arbitration. Like oxygen waits. Lyra's jaw tightened. Who told you that? Mira jerked her chin toward the corridor, where council robes passed like shadows. Their liaison. Smiling. Said help would come if we didn't escalate. Said we had to follow process. Lyra felt something in her chest try to rise, heat, rage, the old instinct to strike. She forced it down until it became a hard, cold line. What happened before the blast? Myra's breath hitched. We were already low. A shipment was supposed to arrive 3 days ago. Replacement membranes, valve assemblies. It got held at the checkpoint. Routine inspection. They said it would be cleared soon. She barked a short laugh that sounded like choking. Soon didn't matter. Tomas added quietly. We pinged the Council Port Authority every 6 hours. They kept answering. Always polite. Always, later. Lyra turned back to the manifold in her mind, to the pinch marks, the neatness of the ruin. And the security cameras? Myra's lips curled. Offline for maintenance. Same day. The room blurred at the edges, not from tears, but from a pressure behind Lyra's eyes. Hestia Ridge was a dot on a star map, an outpost with algae vats and a stubborn little dome, built by people who thought distance meant freedom. Her brother had thought that too. He'd sent her a voice note 2 weeks ago, bragging about the new greenhouse, about tomatoes that tasted like earth. She left the triage room before the investigators could see the crack forming in her composure. In the corridor, a small memorial had begun, a cluster of names on a data slate propped against the wall, a child's knitted glove placed on top. Lyra's fingers brushed the slate edge, steadying herself. A calm chime vibrated in her ear. Encrypted priority. She answered without speaking. Admiral Sato's voice came through, clipped and tired. Lyra! You're recalled. The Council is convening a session on the Spire. They're framing this as evidence of developmental risk. Lyra stared at the amber-lit corridor. They're going to tighten the leash. Likely. We're sending you as strategic envoy. Minimal delegation. No theater. Lyra's throat went dry. Why me? Because you don't smile when they expect you to, Sato said. A pause. And because you know how traps work. Lyra exhaled once, controlled. Understood. One more thing. Sato's voice dipped. You'll receive a sealed case. Do not open it until you are inside the chamber. Do not reference it until instructed. The timing matters. Lyra's eyes flicked toward the investigators, toward their drones, toward their comm. What's in it? You'll know when you need to. Sato hesitated, just a breath. Lyra, don't let them turn your grief into policy. The channel cut. 2 hours later, Lyra stood in the docking bay of the human cutter, watching Hestia Ridge shrink beneath them as the ship pulled away. The dome looked intact from a distance, like a lie told at scale. Her aide, June Park, approached with the sealed case, a matte black rectangle with a biometric lock. It arrived with Fleet Courier. Hand-delivered. Lyra took it. It was heavier than it looked. Keep it close. June studied her face. Commander, if the Council sanctions us, if they close ports, frontier colonies will suffer. Lyra didn't look away from the viewport. They're already suffering, she said. The difference is whether we pretend it's peace. The sable spire rose out of neutral space like a monument built from certainty. Light spilled along its ribs, and countless docking arms held ships from 100 species. Its central chamber, visible as a halo of rotating structure, looked less like architecture and more like a promise: obey, and you'll be safe. As they disembarked, ambient sound shifted. Languages layered over each other in soft waves. Holographic banners floated above polished floors. Security drones drifted in deliberate patterns, as if choreographed to calm. A Valori attendant glided forward, elegant and expressionless. Commander Cade. The Council welcomes humanity's continued cooperation. Lyra offered nothing back but her name badge and clearance. Where is the chamber? The attendant blinked, adjusting to the lack of pleasantries. This way. Inside the main hall, delegates clustered like planets in orbit, drawn to power. When Archconsul Vale Thuin entered, the room's attention shifted as one. He was tall, draped in dark ceremonial fabric that shimmered with embedded circuitry. His eyes were warm in the way a blade could be warm, polished, reflective, dangerous. Commander Cade, Thuin said, voice amplified just enough to feel intimate. Humanity has faced a grievous trial. Yet you come with admirable restraint. Lyra inclined her head by a fraction. We came to speak. Thuin's smile widened, paternal. The galaxy can be overwhelming for young civilizations. We're not young, Lyra said. We're just new to your table. A ripple ran through the observers. The silence after Lyra Cade's refusal stretched like tension wire. No, she had said, and the entire council chamber had paused. Not out of confusion. Out of disbelief. Archconsul Thuin blinked once. The movement was minute, but in a species like his, Valori-born diplomats, it was a crack in the porcelain. Commander Cade, he said softly. Perhaps the translator misrendered your response. The Council has offered a pathway to mutual stability. This is the proper venue for clarity, not posturing. Lyra stepped forward once. Calm. No raised voice, no dramatics. I speak for the human delegation. Our answer is clear. We will not sign the renewed mentorship accord. We reject all diplomatic mediation tied to dependency. Effective immediately, we withdraw from all Council enforcement mechanisms. Gasps, in 6 languages. The room's holographic globe, once rotating in elegant arcs, froze mid-spin. Councillor Oralyn of the Jekari leaned forward, her frilled neck vibrating in alarm. You would walk away from council systems? From shared protection? From economic relief? We're walking away from managed survival, Lyra replied. A June Park stood beside her, tense. Commander. She didn't look at him. No arbitration. No port control. No subsidized compliance. Thuan's smile returned, colder now. Commander, humanity lacks the industrial maturity to survive alone. Refusing help is not bravery, it is recklessness. Lyra met his eyes. Then let the record show we have chosen to be reckless, rather than domesticated. Back in the human delegation quarters, tension spread through the air like static. The room had been designed to be neutral, smooth walls, calming tones, ambient white noise. It now felt like a box waiting to collapse. June slammed the tablet down. Sanctions are going to hit fast. Fleet assets will be frozen. Medical shipments blocked. Fuel prices on the frontier could triple within a week. Lyra opened the central console and pulled up colony logistics. The numbers were already shifting, lines going red, shipments delayed. We expected this, she said. No, Commander. We hoped they wouldn't move this fast. June ran a hand through his hair. Some of our stations can't synthesize critical meds yet. Some water recyclers still use parts we don't manufacture. Lyra tapped the table. Her fingers were steady. Then we start manufacturing. June looked at her like she'd lost her mind. With what? We don't have factories ready for half of this. We will. She stood. Send the activation code for Protocol Bastion. Sector commanders will know what it means. June hesitated. That protocol hasn't been tested at this scale. It will be now. Protocol Bastion was the human fallback. Distributed production, localized AI synthesis, colony-based fabrication hubs. Emergency independence. It wasn't designed to win a war. It was designed to keep people breathing when the galaxy turned its back. Within hours, colony relays lit up, low-orbit recyclers coming online. Emergency medfabs retooled for synthesizing insulin analogs. Scrapped cargo shuttles converted into fuel distilleries. The messages came in bursts. Warada Station initiating Phase 3 output. Repurposed algae biovats now producing Type B nutrient packs. Minerva Station reporting 18% efficiency on cold forge rebuilds. Standing by for pressure valves. One by one, human colonies shifted from consumers to makers. Meanwhile, the Council moved swiftly. Faster than Lyra had anticipated. Human trade accounts were frozen under Security Compliance Order 411. Cargo vessels flagged for intensive inspection vanished from Council-controlled lanes. Headlines flooded Council-linked networks. Human defiance, instability, or ambition? The cost of isolationism. Can Earth survive? Commander Lyra Cade, the woman behind the rift. The last one played a slow pan of Lyra's face, taken from Spire surveillance. The background music was grim, manipulative. Worse, the Council leaked portions of Lyra's record, specifically her role in fleet strategic operations. The implication was simple: this wasn't diplomacy. It was sabotage in formalware. Councilor Call of the Rentu even called for a motion to place human space under temporary stabilization oversight, a euphemism for occupation. Thuan invited her for a private meeting. The chamber was high-ceilinged, wrapped in velvet light, designed for softening conflict. It smelled faintly of cedarwood and dust. Thuan stood near a suspended sculpture of entwined stars. You've made quite the impression, Commander. Few species have ever made the Council pause. She didn't sit. I'm not here to impress you. No, he said, turning. You're here to lose. With dignity, I hope. Lyra's silence was knife-sharp. Thuan approached. We have an alternative proposal. Not public. You'd retain nominal independence. A seat in peripheral councils. Autonomy, with limits. It would preserve face. Yours and ours. Lyra's eyes narrowed. And the cost? Joint fleet authority. Trade routed through vetted ports. A shared tech license pool. Guidance. Chains. Structure, he said. She stepped closer, not blinking. My brother died waiting for your structure. Your systems, your process. Hestia Ridge burned under your guidance. Thuin tilted his head. One colony. One tragedy. The galaxy must be managed or it fractures. Let it fracture, she said. Hours later, June approached with the latest intel. Council vote is scheduled. They're calling it a protective intervention to stabilize our frontier. Lyra read between the lines. Legal invasion. Ships under the flag of peace. Once they landed, they'd never leave. We can't fight this with firepower, June muttered. Not here. We won't. She pulled up a data feed and summoned a transmission node. Who are you contacting? Lyra's fingers tapped commands. Someone who's lived under council guidance for 100 years. Someone who knows what it costs. The hollow shimmered, forming into the curved, wrinkled face of an elder Quarathi archivist. Eyes like burnished copper, voice like dry leaves. You remember me? Lyra asked. I remember your questions, the being said. You wanted to know how treaties become shackles. I need the proof. The archivist blinked. You're in open defiance. Yes. The archivist hesitated. Then I will give you the data. It will not save you. But it may teach others. Files transferred. Network simulations. Dependency trees. AidWeb decay timelines. One stark truth repeated across the charts. Every civilization that signed the Council's mentorship framework became dependent within 2 generations. Trade shifted. Autonomy declined. By the 3rd generation, most had no fleet. No manufacturing. No choice. Later that night, Lyra watched silent projections on the Spire's internal display grid. Footage of the frontier. Humans repurposing old mining platforms into solar distilleries. Converting obsolete AI cores into medical diagnostics. A girl on a Martian outpost, no older than 10, configuring a nutrient printer with steady hands. They weren't begging. They were building. And that terrified the Council more than any fleet ever could. The next day, Lyra returned to the chamber. The Council was prepared to vote on the protective intervention mandate. Thuin's face was serene, already rehearsing the speech he'd give about regretful necessity. But Lyra didn't come to argue. She came to redefine the rules. She stepped to the center, calm and precise. The message arrived at 0430 hours Spire time, cold and clinical. Subject: trade route violation, investigation underway. Body: Convoy XJ9 encountered loss of signal near the Halmar Expanse. Human flagged freighter Naiad, presumed lost. Privateers unaffiliated with Council claim no involvement. Lyra Cade stared at the words, jaw clenched. No distress beacon had been received. No security response was dispatched. No public statement had been made. Naiad was carrying medgen cores, June said quietly, entering her quarters. Bound for Corinth Station. They needed those to run pediatric synth labs. And we got silence in return, Lyra murmured. Her eyes stayed fixed on the display. They let it happen. Or worse. June didn't argue. He set a mug on the table. Coffee. Synth brewed, but functional. Lyra took a long sip. Bitter, sharp, appropriate. They're escalating, June said. Not openly. But this is the second incident in 5 days. They want us to lash out, Lyra said. Make it easier to justify intervention. Paint us feral. June leaned against the wall. It's working. I'm getting calls from angry outposts asking when we retaliate. We don't retaliate, she said. We expose. That afternoon, she received a private summons. Arch-Consul Thuin again. The meeting room was smaller than the last. Less stage, more intimacy. A controlled environment. Thuin stood near the viewport, looking out at the shimmer of docked ships and relay towers. Commander Cade, he said, voice low and composed. This does not have to be your path. She crossed her arms. You mean the path where we don't hand over our autonomy like a favor? Thuin turned, expression unreadable. What is autonomy without stability? Without interdependence? You speak of freedom, but your frontier bleeds without us. We're bleeding because of you. Tragic anomalies, he offered. If you re-enter dialogue, the Council can deploy relief immediately. Shared security measures, trade reactivation. Think of your colonies. Lyra didn't blink. You mean occupation. Subjugation with a softer voice. He exhaled, folding his hands. You are a capable strategist. But strategy is not survival. Survival is compromise. We offer you a place in something greater. No, she said. You offer a cage. Thuin stepped closer. Then be clear with me, Commander. What do you want? Lyra smiled, a razor-thin thing. I want your house of mirrors to crack in front of an audience. She returned to the delegation chamber and unlocked the sealed case Fleet Command had sent. Inside, high-density drive, biometric secured. She keyed it open. The data was raw, sensor logs, encrypted payment trails, half-complete registries tied to known Council contractors. Enough to suggest the Hestia Ridge tragedy had been coordinated. Not enough to convict in the court of galactic opinion. Not yet. We can't use this, June said, scanning the files. If we release it now, they'll call it fake. That we fabricated it to cover our withdrawal. I know, Lyra said. He looked up. So what now? We don't release it. We make them do it. June's brow furrowed. Council archives are locked tighter than a dreadnought core. Not even backdoor AIs can get in. They don't have to. The Council built their own weakness into the system. She opened a secure channel to a contact from the Quarathi Archivist Enclave, the same who had helped her trace the dependency model weeks prior. The alien's face appeared, aged and angular, eyes like burnished bronze. You're accelerating. They've left me no choice, Lyra said. I need access to records that prove Council authorization behind the frontier sabotage. Impossible, the Quarathi said. Those directives are buried, shielded behind sovereign override code. I don't want to break in. I want to trigger an automatic release. The alien was quiet. You seek a precision request. One the system cannot deny. Yes. There is a statute. Obscure. Ancient. A transparency law buried under economic regulations. If you word the request perfectly, the archive must respond. Lyra nodded once. Send the format. I'll write the request myself. 12 hours later, in a quiet Council Tech court, Lyra submitted the request under Sovereign Transparency Clause 9A2. The form was just 10 lines long. Specific, surgical. It asked for archived transaction records concerning security contractor disbursements in the Halmar corridor within a 28-day window. She signed it, encrypted it, and submitted. Now they had to wait. But the Council wasn't sleeping. 3 hours later, Spire Security knocked on her door. 2 Valori agents for uniformed guards. Commander Lyra Cade, the lead said. You are summoned under Immediate Detainment Clause 17.3. Actions potentially endangering galactic cohesion. June stood eyes wide. They're arresting you. Lyra calmly stepped forward. Let them. The guards hesitated. She tapped her shoulder, an embedded comm beacon lit up red. Just remember, you're being recorded. And if I vanish, a dozen mirror logs will activate. Across 3 species networks. The agents hesitated, just long enough to confirm her trap. The Council wanted silence. She would give them noise. Inside the detainment chamber, Lyra sat alone, no restraints, no threats, just silence and the hum of recycled air. But outside, things were changing. Fleet Command received the alert. Human ships in neutral orbit repositioned. Not in attack posture, yet unmistakably present. Several minor species asked questions. Why arrest the envoy? Why now? Others stayed quiet but watched. Closely. Hours later, June visited, eyes lit. They're processing your archive request. Lyra didn't smile. They'll delay it if they can. They tried. But it's coded into the system. Clock's ticking. She exhaled. Good. He Saturday. Frontiers holding. Warada Station fabricated their first batch of synth meds. Minerva reactivated its vacuum fusion rigs. Emergency solar banks in Titan's orbit are running full power. Lyra nodded. They're building. June leaned in, quieter now. But Naiad's crew, 37 gone. We both know who did it. We do, she said. And we're going to make the council say it out loud. The next morning, a single chime echoed through the delegation wing. Archive update. It had happened. Council systems, in compliance with procedural law, had initiated a public record release. Contents, contractor routing data, transaction logs, command authorizations, surveillance timestamp chains, all tied to the Halmar corridor, all connected to council-led stabilization projects, all matching Lyra's sealed case data. It was irrefutable. Not a human accusation. A council confession. Lyra was escorted back to the chamber, this time without force. Thuan was waiting. His smile had disappeared. I assume you've seen the release? She said. His voice was dry. An unfortunate administrative oversight. She stepped onto the center platform. Every delegate watched. Even those who had once dismissed her. We didn't fabricate the evidence, she said, voice calm and hard. You did. With your policies, your contractors, your silence. And now, she said, your own system has exposed you. Counselor Call rose from her seat, hands trembling. This cannot be sanctioned. It was, Lyra said. By the very laws you used to justify your control. She paused. Then spoke the words no one expected. This was never a rebellion. This was a reckoning. And the room, for once, didn't argue. The council chamber buzzed not with noise, but with unease, a low, tense vibration in the air, like instruments tuned too tightly. Every delegate sat upright, trying not to look at the data streams still flickering in their retinal displays. The archive audit, triggered not by humans, but by the council's own protocols, had done what no voice ever could. It had shown payments routed through obfuscated shells, contractor dispatch logs from Thuan's security coalition, scheduling overlaps between peacekeeping patrols and disabled colonial infrastructure. Even internal memos, clipped clinical, referred to strategic scarcity escalation as a deterrence model. The truth had always been there, buried under procedural stone. Now it was public. And silence was no longer an option. Lyra Cade stood at the chamber center, composed, unmoved by the avalanche she had set loose. We were told peace was a system, she said, voice clear but not raised. But it was always a leash. Behind her, June stood beside the sealed case, the one that had never needed to be opened. The council had confessed without realizing it. Councillor Vale Thuan remained seated, hands steepled, face unreadable. He hadn't spoken since the release. His control, built over a century of managed order, had cracked. Not in fire, not in war, but in procedure. Lyra turned toward him. You wanted to manage us. To shape us into something predictable, dependent, obedient. You used diplomacy as a cage and called it peace. But peace without autonomy is just sedation. Thuan finally spoke, calm and precise. You have undone a balance built over centuries. We didn't undo it, Lyra replied. We revealed it. Counselor Call of the Rentu, once Thuan's staunchest ally, stood slowly. Her gill-like neck ridges were flushed dark. We were promised transparency, she said. Instead, we received theater. Manipulation masked as mentorship. Others murmured in agreement. Whispers. Doubts. Lines drawn in ink now dissolving under light. Thuan turned his gaze on Lyra. You'll fracture the council. No, she said. You did that. We just held up the mirror. Hours later, in a secondary session, the council met behind closed walls. Emergency vote, a motion to declare humanity a rogue destabilizer under Article 7. It would authorize economic blockades, fleet movements, legalized aggression. Thuan lobbied hard. Fear was his currency now. They've rejected the order, he said. Not just ours, but the order itself. If we do not act, others will follow. But others already were. The Cernity delegation abstained. The Porvani delegation denounced the motion outright. The Korathi, keepers of records and scars, submitted a formal declaration. Humanity acted within protocol. The audit was legal. The evidence is council-authored. No action will be supported. The vote failed. Barely. But it failed. Lyra stood in her delegation's quarters, reviewing feeds. Colonies were holding. Warada had begun shipping nutrient packs to other outposts. Minerva's medsynths were exceeding output projections. Corinth Station reconnected its deep-range antenna network. We did it, June whispered. Lyra shook her head. We started it. June looked at her, brow furrowed. Then what's next? She tapped the console and opened the final file. The Severance Declaration. The next day, the council reconvened. Cameras rolled. The spire's full attention focused on the human envoy. Lyra stepped to the center once again. No grand theatrics. No flair. Just gravity. This is not a declaration of war, she said. It's the end of a contract that was never honest. She paused. No sound challenged her. Effective immediately, the human species severs all treaty obligations under council governance. We will no longer be bound by fleets we don't control, trade routes we don't choose, technologies we're forbidden from advancing. A wave of shifting postures. Surprise. Relief. Dread. We will establish independent navigation relays. We will defend our systems with our own doctrine. We will not, ever again, seek permission to breathe. Murmurs echoed. Some nodded. Others glared. But no one interrupted. And to those who have suffered under the same systems, Lyra continued, we offer something the Council never did, tools. She uploaded the codes. Dozens of species received access to open-source schematics for medical fabricators, recycling tech, nutrient processors, clean energy microgrids. Humanity had reverse-engineered every Council-licensed system they could, then rebuilt them better. And shared them freely. The Council's control had always been through scarcity. Lyra shattered it in a single transmission. Councillor Thuan stood abruptly. You are arming insurgents. No, Lyra said. We're arming survivors. And you're afraid of what happens when they don't need you. Thuan's voice sharpened. This will lead to chaos. You'll destroy the structure holding the galaxy together. No, she said. We're offering choice. That's what you fear. The chamber descended into chaos. Not violence, motion. Delegations whispering, breaking formation. Allies distancing themselves from Thuan. For the first time in generations, the balance of the Council had shifted. And it was not toward control. It was toward truth. Thuan, cornered, made his final play. He triggered the emergency override protocol. A rarely used Council mechanism. Motion, immediate classification of humanity as a rogue civilizational threat. Clause, Council authority to enact full containment operations. It was a last, desperate reach. And it failed. 8 delegations abstained. 3 walked out. The motion collapsed. Thuan stood, alone in the center of a structure he had built. And lost. Lyra didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She walked to the center one last time and faced the chamber. We're not your enemy, she said. We're your proof. That order without consent is a facade. That peace without freedom is fiction. That survival is not submission. She looked at each delegate, one by one. We will trade. We will speak. We will learn. But never again from beneath. Then she turned. and left. Back aboard the human flagship Resolute, the delegation prepared for departure. No press. No farewell speeches. Just quiet movements and new maps. June stood by the viewport, watching the spire recede into darkness. "Feels strange," he said. "Because we didn't burn it down?" Lyra asked. He nodded. "We just walked away. We left the door open behind us," she said. "They'll follow. Some of them." He smiled. "And if they don't?" Lyra looked out into the stars, wide, silent, full of paths not yet charted. "Then we'll show them what life without chains looks like." She activated the final transmission. A short signal sent across all Council standard channels. "To all civilizations, humanity will not be managed. If you seek peace, come as equals. Our door is open." In the quiet that followed, Lyra opened a private comm. The message was short. "To no one. Or maybe to someone. We didn't wait, Daniel. Not this time. No more waiting." The stars shimmered beyond the viewport. And humanity moved forward, not in defiance, but in dignity.